very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us here today at 270 Peter. Today's a very special day. The seas are cooperating quite nicely, and that we're able to have many of our top senior officers here for just a very casual morning, question and answer. So if you have any questions, anything that comes to mind, feel free to ask of them. Most of you should have the little handouts there, which may generate a few questions that you have, or might answer questions before you even have to ask them. To bring to the dais this morning, I'd like to bring out, first and foremost, on all of our Royal Caribbean ships, we are the leaders in the industry with our environmental programs, our recycling, just nothing goes overboard. And to tell you a little bit more about them, ladies and gentlemen, from Boston, Massachusetts, is your environmental officer, Ryan. Take your seat, just like the captains. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, is the officer in charge of basically everything mechanical on the ship, electrical. He knows every nut, bolt, boilerplate. He keeps those engines purring like a kitten, making sure we get from point A to point B. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our amazing chief engineer. We have Leszek. Now, of course, we have two divisions on board the ship, ladies and gentlemen. We have the marine side and we have our hotel side. The hotel side is by far the largest division on board. That's making sure that you're well fed, drunk, if you will. All the entertainment, everything that you need in that regard. He is absolutely terrific. Ladies and gentlemen, he is your hotel director. Please welcome Keith. And last but not least is the man who every night goes to sleep with about 6,000 people underneath his pillow. He's in charge of everything, literally from the bridge all the way down to the engine room, and is the definition, ladies and gentlemen, of an officer and a gentleman. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome fresh back from his holiday, Master of Vessel Captain Espen. And we left another seat there just because you never know who is always available on a busy sea day. We'll let our officers get comfortable there, and then we'll, even though I've just introduced them, we'll let them maybe go one by one and give you a little more introduction of their background. We'll start with Ryan, yes, sir.
Hey, good morning, everyone. And my name is Espen. How are you today? Pretty good, yeah? And normally let our officers introduce themselves, actually, yeah? So either from port to starboard and starboard to ports. Let's start with Leszek, yeah? And we go this way, ending up with Ryan here on our starboard side.
Good morning, my name is Leszek, I'm from Poland. I am a chief engineer. I started to work with Royal Caribbean in the year 2000, so as you can see it's a little bit. And it's nice to see you all. Welcome on board.
Good morning, everybody. So first off, I have a disclaimer. Usually the answer in my head, it sounds better than the one that comes out of my mouth. So the second disclaimer is that this is the first time we've all done this together. So if one of us lies, you'll see surprise on the face of the rest of us. So, my name is Keith, I'm the hotel director on board. As John said, I'm from Ireland. As we all know, everybody from Ireland is 50% Australian, so welcome, thank you very much.
Morning everyone, my name's Ryan. I'm the environmental officer on board. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. I started with the company in 2019 in the office. Spent the last 2 years on board. Finally made it out, so morning.
So my name is Espen, and you look and also in between. Yeah? I started here back in '96, and that's a couple of years back, isn't it? Before that, I used to work for the previous owner on tankers in the US Gulf, and now it's 2022. I don't know how many years it's been, but quite a few years actually. Yeah? And we worked on pretty much all the classes we have except the Oasis class. So I'm glad to be back in Australia. Of course, I left Australia last time at the end of February 2020. I don't remember what happened in March 2020. was luckily Marine managed to stay on board. We had a full job during the pandemic, and I was placed. There were 2 radios before, yeah. So I've been around the area. Earlier, we were stuck in Asia, off Singapore, or Malaysia, or Hong Kong, or depending, for a long time, yeah. Middle of nowhere, no contracts, and everyone hated us down there, yeah. So they used to sign on and off. There was quarantine left, right, and center, and PCR sticking up your nose there with all the holes in the body, I think, yeah. Before you could sign off and get on board, yeah. So thanks God, that's hopefully over, yeah. So finally, we get back to service, and we're really happy. And this season, we have also quantum class sailing down there, or quantum full seas sailing from Bristol. So 2 ships from Royal down there, 2 big ships, and there's a very important market for the Royal Caribbean in this area. So maybe later, more ships coming down here, yeah. And with a Venus class, who knows? So, you any questions? Anything to say, Mr. Keith?
No, I mean, just a brief history. No more than a captain. I'm with the company 23 years, not as long as him, because I'm not as old. So.
I am more here than you.
No, I have to work with captains and all my shit. So. No, I've been 23 years. I started as a concierge. I was so bad at that they promoted me and kept promoting me till I got here. And they refused to let me drive. I think I would be good at it, but maybe not. I've been down in Australia before, actually. I've taken in the Voyager the first time she came into Australia. And I took in Ovation when she came into Australia, and Quantum as well, actually. So I've done all the 3 of them in Australia. Always found it to be a great market, beautiful, beautiful places that we visit now here, and look forward to another season here.
And we have 2 of our amazing activities center. We have Bertie over here to the right, and Amy right there. So if you have any questions, just raise your hand and they'll rush over to you with a microphone. And we can hear that. Don't be shy. This is your opportunity. I thought I saw some hands over here. Go. Oh, Bertie's got one over there. About 11 o'clock, gentlemen.
Are the engine rooms available for inspection?
You're asking for engine room tour, like?
Yeah, we have the engine control room, and engine spaces are not available from these tours.
So they used to be actually for a good point of mine. Then we had some 4 places which did perform on there, so they whatever. So there's no more instrument tours anymore.
So we do have what they call the all-access tour. It covers a lot of spaces on the ship, including the engine control room. You can do it through shore excursions or through the guest services desk. I mean, for anybody who hasn't done it, who has an interest, it is actually very interesting to do. It lasts about 2.5 hours, and you cover multiple areas across the ship. And with an expert in each area, that'll give you a breakdown of what happens there and answer any questions that we tell you lies about.
All right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Surely we have some more. Yes. Oh, yes, right down in front. Amy, here's Bernie.
There's a move across the industry to work with lighter fuels, things like LPG, etc. Is that something that you're looking at across the fleet?
Please say again?
To move to lighter fuels?
We are still running on HFO on board there. And then also MGO, the marine gas oil, that's basically diesel. Yeah? And we are using heavy, we got a scrubber system on board, yeah? It's leck on the televan, it basically cleans out the stuff out of the fuel and ending up with basically 0, yeah? So we're still using heavy, and then also we're using also MGO, the gas oil, yeah? And then they're looking into future fuels a lot also, yeah? But they don't talk about hydrogen and ammonia and so forth, but it's not really any holy grails for the big ships actually, yeah? But they're looking into, actually the smaller ships to use fuel cells, so you can basically stay in ports with the fuel cells. Small, but this kind of ship it doesn't work yet, yeah? But the smaller expedition ships, for sure, yeah? And we're getting one new ship coming out now. She can almost stay on hydrogen cells in port power, yeah? So a lot of research going on. We have a big energy department, but he is working closely with the rest of the marine sector also. Yeah? And we are small compared to the commercial sector. We have a very small play in the cruise industry. Yeah? We work closely with the Maersk, the Mountain Maersk that uses the carbon also. So everyone is working towards the same goal, but it was zero emission carbon per footprint in 2050. So we're working hard to make sure that we're reducing it, because every year we've done that also for the last 20 years is reduced to more than 30% through the third person on board. Introducing new ship and new technology. We look at the Oasis class, when the Harmony came out, she used 20% less energy than the two first Oasis earlier. So a lot is going on to reduce the fuel because of constantly. And this should be done by either electricity.
Yes, we have a lot of waste heat recovery system, just allowed us to save energy. And it's worth to add that our newest ship, Argon, will be driven, the engines will be driven by LNG, which is, let's say, the best fuel which you can dig in the earth.
Yeah, okay, LNG is not the solution either, it's still carbon focused either. So it's just a step on the way, and it reduces within that 10-15% if I'm calculated. But it's still a step on the way because it's the cleaner fuel than this one, and then it's not an easy solution to stop using fossil fuel for the time being. But we're getting there, and a lot of the research going on, and then future hopefully is right.
What else do we have? Oh, yeah, we have almost at 12 o'clock. Bernie's, okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Bernie, while you're going to that, we've got Amy here at 12 o'clock.
Hi everybody. We were supposed to have 3 stops and we are only getting 2. Why?
A mystery island. It's not a mystery. But during the pandemic, they have a pier there which is not ready for us, basically. Yeah? So we are working with the locals. You know, the Pacific is very complicated. It's tribal run societies up there. Yeah? And we've been working over the Vanuatu to get that pier up and running and pushing. It is in progress to rebuild or fix the pier again. Yeah? So it's a beautiful island, but it is what it is after the pandemic, getting things up and running again. And the islands have been very reluctant to receive us, reluctant to do anything at all. Yeah? So that's one of the reasons, of course. And some of the problems sailing from Australia, Australia is a continent, middle of nowhere basically, yeah? And it's long distances wherever we go. And you don't have the biggest choice either to which island you can go to in the Pacific. Because the size of the ships, I think maybe the Radiance class, the Voyager class, can choose between more islands to go to, leave them home. But these size of vessels, we're not allowed to go to these smaller islands again. It's a very beautiful island, like Isle of Pine and so forth. Yeah? But again, it's a bit complicated, it's still closed, and it's private run areas also. But I'm sorry about that because it's part of the experience is to go to oil ports also. So
Thank you very much. I thought they didn't want us.
No, not at all. Actually, part of it, the other side of that equation is, of course, with everybody being out of, we'll say, touch in the last couple of years, the facilities there, they were upgrading them and renewing them, so it's going to take just a little bit of time on it. They do have one call, not with us unfortunately, for as like a tester in order to bring people back in to make sure that they have all bases covered and you guys get the maximum comfort when you go in there. So but we're still working on it.
And Bernie, I lost you, Bernie. Oh, there you go.
Good morning. My question is about the water that's in the pools. So when we get a bit of a swell up and you have to empty the pools out, is that water pumped into like ballast tanks or holding tanks? Or is it, because I believe it comes from the ocean initially, or is it pumped back out into the ocean? And if so, is it treated before it is, because it's pretty heavily chlorinated?
yeah. And the chlorine is no problem for the ocean anyway. It's whatever, but they can move on that.
So depending on where we are would kind of determine the process that's taken, because as is, it can be discharged directly back to the sea without dechlorination. Like Captain said, there's no problem with the chlorine there. But when we're within a certain distance from land, that's when it might be brought to the gray water tanks and treated along with the rest of the wastewater. So it just depends on where we are in relation to the nearest land.
And it's fresh water in the pool, yeah? Basically, so we produce the water on board and it goes inside the pool. It's all fresh water. Yeah, it's desalinated, yeah? We have a grower plant on board, basically, and then we are evaporated also. That makes fresh water on board. How much can we produce every day, Nick?
We are having 4 units which are doing our potable water, 1 evaporator, 3 reverse osmosis. Each of them can make 850 cubic meters per 24 hours.
So in about 3 of them, yes? The 2,400 or?
Yeah, but usually we run just to cover our consumption, which is approximately 1,000 cubic meters per day. So usually we run 2 plants, 3 plants.
Where does the wastewater go, by the way? Where does the wastewater go?
Well, as far as wastewater on board, we have what's called the AWP, Advanced Wastewater Purification System. So with all of our wastewaters on board, it goes through 4 stages. The first being pre-screening, the second biomass reduction, solid removal, and then UV. So all the waters, sewage, gray waters, within 3 nautical miles, the pool waters also, they're going through all 4 of these stages, and by the time the water comes out, regardless of where the source is, whether it was sewage or water from the galleys, what's coming out on the other side is crystal clear water. You wouldn't even be able to tell what it was originally.
That's what they're drinking this morning, ladies and gentlemen.
And we used to have our people ship a Scottish guy. He used to work on treatment plants in Scotland. He said that if treatment plants come on board, the jail always has in charge of Scotland. It's all to water being discharged.
I do have a question though for the chief engineer. It's taken me 22 years to ask him, how much is 1,000 cubic meters?
You mean gallons or liters?
Whichever, I don't want gallons, I can do both.
The 1,000 cubic meters is 1 million liters.
There you go, 1 million.
And how many pints a day is that? Roughly 2 million pints a day.
And Andy, at about the 1 o'clock on the dial.
Hi, this is okay. I'm very interested in the food and beverage stacks, especially alcoholic ones. Does that change when you leave? Including Australian waters?
You mean my personal consumption of it? Australians, typically have been noted as one, like the Irish, as one of, we'll say, the higher consumption of alcohol on board. To the exact stats, well, we couldn't do that. We might discriminate against a lot of nationalities. So we leave it alone and we just say, thank you.
My question is about the private island in front of the letter. The wheels seem to have fallen off. The record will be getting a few box off in it. And where's our Oasis class?
Where's Oasis class going? You have an Oasis class in Australia. Yeah, they were talking about it actually, planning for the Oasis class. There is port facilities also, we need the proper port facilities. She's slightly longer and a little bit wider and carry more guests. And she's designed for warm water cruising, basically, and the open space on board and so forth. Central Park and the other one is called whatever, yeah? I was there last week anyway. So they're basically designed for different areas as the cruising, warm weather cruising. So going to New Zealand with Oasis class is maybe not that easy. So they're looking into it, planning and so on, have been up in the air, but I don't know any more than that.
Anybody who's queued for a shuttle in Dunedin or Wellington or somewhere? I'm not sure you want to raise the stars down here just yet. In terms of the LEPA with the island, it's still going. Obviously, there was a stall for a couple of years, like all of the projects we've had, and Royal has a number of projects around the world, including in Antigua, Nassau. We're still doing Coco Cay. Labadee, but Lelepa is probably somewhere around, going to be around 26, 27 that it's going to come online. I think I was 30 the other day or something. again, with everything, with the loss of, we'll say, materials and the loss of manpower and man hours working on it, it's a slow restart for everyone.
So Ireland, our destination here in Vanuatu, is also the rendering. It looks amazing, but due to the what happened with the pandemic and so forth, everything postponed for a couple of years. And the plans are there, and the lease and so forth, it's there. So hopefully we'll start our project as soon as possible, because that project is amazing. Yeah? It's going to be a destination itself, and we're talking about overnight and also. Yeah? So imagine. So 26, 27, hopefully.
Bernie at the 10 o'clock.
Just a follow-up question to that. Is it still under consideration by Royal Caribbean to leave a ship here during our winter, given the island development down the track? Is that a likelihood?
On a cruise all year round here. So me personally, I haven't heard anything in terms of it. We do, it does take a while to do it. And again, I think we were just hitting our stride in Australia with the number of ships that we had here, that would be open for a possible consideration. But again, with the size, it would have to be kind of this is an all-weather ship because we have so many indoor spaces on it, it would have to be one of these ships. But again, to get into access to ports and stuff and what viable, we'll say, market base we would have in order to do an all-year-round cruise down here is open to interpretation. I'm sure over the next couple of years they will be gathering information on it.
Actually, we need more ships to cover all the markets. So it might happen in the future. It will happen in the future, I do think, when you get more ships out there. Yeah? So, but the thing is, we're missing ships to deploy in all the markets we really want to be.
Maybe anything on your side?
One right down here, John. Just beside, in the middle.
Can you tell me what the fuel consumption is per day? And also, is there any Royal Caribbean ship in the world that goes on shore power when in port?
Yes, that depends how fast captain is driving the fuel consumption. And at the moment we are going pretty fast, and we are using around liters or
Points of day goes down, yeah?
we are using about 12,000 liters per hour now. But when we go with slow speed, we are using around 4,000 liters per hour.
I'm glad I don't pay the bill on that one.
We have quite a few ships that are ready for shore power. But Israel's shoreside facilities, they're not ready yet for shore power. That's what we're waiting for, yeah? So we are, all new builds are ready, and we retrofit also if that goes to dry docks where they do shore power. But to have the ports ready, we need a big infrastructure to be able to send us 10 megawatts. So it's not you don't go to Home Depot and roll out the cable there and plug it in.
One of the very few places in the world that does shore power is LA. And they've been doing it for years, so it's mandatory when we take our ships in there, no matter even if they're transiting through, that we have to use shore power. But again, like the captain said, in terms of the power that they can provide us, they have a lot of rolling blackouts in LA, and that does impact the ship on shore power as well. So until other ports kind of come up to speed with, we can do it, but they don't have the capability of providing it to us.
Oh, in the back. Yeah, Patrick, so way in the back.
Patrick is like this, me.
Yeah, just curious, Royal Caribbean seem to be obsessed with building bigger and bigger ships, which is great. Have they ever considered building a few more smaller ships that go to more interesting places? Because the bigger the ships are, the less ports you can get into, particularly in the Pacific.
So this ship is not interesting enough.
It's fascinating. I noticed you had a hell of a job getting out of Sydney Harbour, so I don't know how you go in some of the small Pacific islands. So I kind of like Radiance and Voyager-sized ships.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I like smaller ships also. Actually, they have a plan in place and a smaller class. It won't be as small as the Radius class. It won't be as small as the Voyager class-ish sizes on those ships. It won't be the Radius class, which is an amazing class of ship, I think. And the Vision class also has the really best itinerary in the fleet. The smaller ships got the, as I said, interesting port and so forth. But there are projects in place, and of course we're building the Icons coming up now, so it's quite big, rather big. And that one is mainly made for the Caribbean market. It's actually the bread and butter for Royal Caribbean as we speak. So there are a class, smaller class, that they are actually, it's in the planning stage, not been marketed yet, but there are things coming slowly. But not as yet, since we have the Radius class and the Voyager class still out there.
One right down front, Bernie. You get your steps in this morning, Bernie.
I'm missing a few.
I've got a two-part one. Quickly, just can you explain what the ramp-up logistic was for being in COVID and then sort of coming back out of COVID, the services back up? And secondly, I think the ship has 4 bow thrusters and 2 escorts, if I'm correct. And you should be able to maneuver pretty much in and out of it, pretty much any tight space with that.
So the last question, it all depends on the weather and wind and the space and the depth, of course. Yeah. So we weren't pretty tight spaces actually, yeah, but it depends on the wind, current, and also depth and so forth. Yeah. And Napier is probably one of the most tight one we're going into. Yeah. Then it's all the nice weather that part of the Bird Iver. So 4 thrusters and two pods in the back end we have here. The ramping up was very interesting, yeah? And then the ramping down also was interesting, and they kept all the crew members back home. And on board again, but you can probably talk more about that. They were all involved in that process.
So yeah, we'll say the ramp down was, in terms of ramping down on the ship, was fairly straightforward, but getting people home was the biggest problem we had. Obviously, no more than Australia. Like Australia was one of the tightest borders in the world to get into. You had to make an appointment, and then you had to quarantine before, and then quarantine when you came in. So, a lot of countries, until they put those safeguards in place, which sometimes caused a delay, we had crew on board right up until I think sometime around December of that year after we went down in March.
And even longer than that, because we had on my ship in Asia, we had within 15 months on board, yeah? So the problem was that limited tickets. So we have got to send crew members home, we work locally on board, we work with tickets, yeah? So they opened up a new open ticket sale again. Within minutes, the ticket was sold. Chinese couldn't go back home because they were sent to a facility shows in Singapore that's approved by the government. And we had no possibility to send them to that facility because we didn't want to send to receive our crew members. And some would went, and then when I go some places, you go back home, you have to fly through transit to another country. The other country didn't accept you in that country. So it was very complicated. Possibly the chest plate to get those things working, but they opened up slowly. So Mauritius was one of the worst ones. At the end, Mauritius and China, we get them back home.
Yeah, we had a lot. I mean, Royal went to the stage where they chartered planes, so they would take crew members from a specific country. And obviously, our biggest demographic of crew member now falls between Filipinos and Indonesians, and again, 2 hard countries to get into. Our crew from Mauritius are increasing all the time. So where possible, they chartered planes to take crew members home. So we fill them, take them, and a lot of it, they went through, in fairness, they went through some hardship because we couldn't always take them back to their gateway city. So we would land in an airport we got permission to, and then we would have to internally source either transport in smaller private planes to take them long distances, or buses, so we would bus them from literally one side of the country to the other. Winding down again, we had to change our thinking in a lot of practices in terms of cold storage, if you want to call it that, at one stage. You had to walk around the ship with a flashlight because the engineer wanted to save power. So he turned off all the lights. So it was kind of fun, and some of it, going out, as I said, we developed a lot of coping mechanisms in terms of what we normally do. As you can imagine, something like this, to maintain it when it's out. If you close up a house, if anybody has a summer house and you close it up for 6 months of the year and you go back, you have a lot of crap to do when you go back in there. So when we came back, We had minimal teams on board and they maintained it. The build-up was crazy. I mean, we had supply lines where nobody was making anything anymore because all the factories around the world had shut down. They had adapted in order to maintain a presence in any market that they had, but it wasn't necessarily suitable for us. So even tomato ketchup, those small sachets we used to use, we now use the bulk ones because we couldn't do it. When we came back initially, we were using bottles, like our little jars of that wonderful stuff you have here, fledging wine. So we had to come around and change our method of business and our method of thinking. And again, when we were bringing crew back, you had the likes of the crew, because we started in the States first. The first ship was the Adventure in Nassau, which meant people would have to fly to Nassau. So they came up with great deals and we had to limit the number of people that were on board. I did the first ship in the US, which was out of Miami, it was the Freedom of the Seas. And in order to get crew members in, they have to have a US visa, a C1D visa, which is a seaman's visa. You couldn't get a C1D visa because the embassies were closed. And there was such a backlog because most people who have to get them, unless you're Irish, you have a very nice relationship with the US. I can mail my passport and I can get my visa. But if you come from outside, say, the European zone where they have accommodations, they had to physically present themselves and there was no appointments. So we were already behind the eight ball in terms of we couldn't get the crew, we needed to staff the ships. So as much as trouble we had getting them home, we had an even bigger problem getting them back again. And then, as I said, the supply lines were stunted simply because they stopped making stuff. And then we came back in at such a rapid pace that when you're coming in, you're trying to get 50,000 crew members from home to come back on board a ship. It's a massive logistical feat. It was incredible to watch. The great thing was, like, I've done startups, Captain Espen worked in the yards for years. When you see a ship come together, it was like doing a startup all over again because you were starting from 0 and go to 100. So it was a really long, detailed, interesting, and sometimes very frustrating process. But I mean, we're here today, thankfully. We came back into Australia like we did into the other markets. And here, to a certain degree, we're kind of still finding our feet because when you've been out of touch for so long, you know what it is, but you still haven't had that touch and feel, so you're still working on it. And we're getting there. So it's good to be back here.
And we were waiting for like 400 crew members to come in, and 89 showed up. 89. And so it went there. So the start was very cumbersome actually. The first ship was easier, but they get more and more ships back into service. You had a problem with this ship this year also. It's started waiting for X number, and it's 1/3 to arrive in the pay. So we started the operations. All the ships were short of crew member staff. But now we are back in par level again. It was a big operation actually to get our crew members back. And we have on board this ship around 34-35% new hires, new royals. Very first time on board a ship and working with Royal Caribbean.
There's one there, a lot of new hires back there, right?
A lot of them. Yes, also bear in mind, some are 11 lost. It takes a while to get just adjusted to this environment actually, I mean, training up and so forth. But this is all the fleet's 1/3 new crew members, and more to come when the icon comes out. So it's a big, imagine hiring all these crew members, imagine, not easy to find them, because everybody in need of labor, and it's a tough job to get all of them back again.
Amy's got one.
Good morning, everybody. When you bring your ships across the best part of the world, Australia, we have a thing here where Australians are coffee snobs, especially Melburnians. When are you going to upgrade the coffee? I understand that. I understand that Americans take a lot of salt and sugar in everything they have, but Australians like nice coffee.
So depending on who you talk to, and believe me, we've tried them all. We have converted our coffee specifically for the Australian market on any time we have come in here. And every time we come in, somebody tells us something different. I'm sure the people who supply coffee to us love it because we keep changing our minds all the time and say, no, we need this and this one. So there is, the coffee, the Australians do drink a huge amount of coffee. Not always will say the brand names that you have out there in the States. Personally, some of the bigger chains out there, the coffee is not as good as the small local place that you walk into when you have the love and the attention that goes into it. That helps make the coffee. Makes you feel
Is
good.
that an excuse?
That's why you put the smiley faces on your cup in the morning when you put it beside your this was made with love from us. So it might not necessarily be your particular type of coffee, but the company in itself do put great market research into it. And again, we talk to all the experts, but if I put 100 people in the room from Australia, I guarantee you I have 100 different types of coffee that they want to drink. So we kind of go for the mass one that we can take, and that's what we use. Well, we're open to suggestion also.
So tell what's wrong with the coffee? It's bitter?
It is bitter, yes. Which sometimes is
We have
coffee,
sugar.
sometimes it's
Sometimes even water sugar on board.
I know where they get it from. I understand a bit about that, so we can discuss it afterwards. But it is what it is. Maybe on the working corporation, they order coffee and decide what's going inside the coffee shop. That's it. Okay? So there's no Starbucks on board now, is it? It's a Lily. Or is it?
It's Lily we use on board, I
Yeah.
believe. The captain has been known to actually brew a cup of coffee now and again. I heard he's very good at it. Maybe he can add that certain je ne sais quoi to your personal coffee.
And we also have Baileys on board, which makes
That's
sense.
always good in coffee.
A muffin coffee in the morning is good, yeah, isn't it?
Right down front, Bernie. We have time for maybe just one or two more. Get our officers back to their jobs.
Hi, I'd just like to know that we're going to have everything on the ship in Australian dollars rather than US dollars.
Somebody else ask a question, look at coffee. So again, we tried this, not in this particular market, but we have tried to change over. So many years ago on Legend of the Seas, I had the wonderful opportunity to join the ship in Hawaii and sail to Southampton in the UK. And in the process of sailing, we transitioned all our currency to British pounds. That did not go down so well.
And I brought this up actually, this question. Actually, the systems are not ready for it. We're working on the system on board to do that transition. So it's in work somewhere. So it's probably coming towards Roy Cribben, hopefully in a couple of years. It's actually in works.
We probably didn't answer your question. We don't really know the answer ourselves. So. No, they will do it in the future, obviously, again with markets, but the market fluctuations moving over, and when you have a ship, if we have a ship permanently, that somebody asked earlier, it would be very viable to put it into Australian dollars. But when you have a ship like this that transitions between two different itineraries, one in North America and then down here, it's very, very hard to make that transition all the time. And we know that Australians are very detailed in terms of what you put on a piece of paper that you can lose your life over. So when you think of just the smallest minute detail, one piece of paper that has a laundry list with laundry prices, if we don't change it out to this, well, then I'm having a different conversation with a whole lot of people. But no, they will, again, in a permanent market, more than likely it would be the way it would go.
It's coming.
We have one question here on 3 o'clock.
The microphone working is off.
Royal Caribbean's our second home, and we can't wait to get back on board, right? I've got a solution to your coffee problem, and you can solve my problem, because we get tired of having to fly out to Sydney and fly back from Sydney when we live in Melbourne. We've got the best coffee. So, Princess coming down there, what about you guys getting down there?
How big is the princess ship that goes into Melbourne? How big is the Princess ship? So I don't know. Well, some of you got a preemptive info there. So the ships, a lot determines in terms of ships going into markets as to the size of the port that we can turn around in for logistics. I know we have called them this ship. We have called into Melbourne as a transitional port, and we go into a day call, which is fine because the logistics are not the same as when we turn around. So in order to get in there, there's a whole lot in the background that half of them I'm not even aware of. But again, the size of the ship, Ashley, you said 108,000 tons? 108,000 tons, which is significantly smaller. So that is all taken into account. Again, I mean, Brisbane, we started with a quantum out of Brisbane this year because they built a new terminal, which gives us those facilities not only for the ship to turn around, but also for border force protection when you're going in and out, your immigration laws, transport logistics, availability in order to get in terms of commercial flights and everything else. So again, all of these are long-term strategies that the company has in moving around ports, that we go into markets transitionally first, and then we start kind of putting down our own footprint, and we expand and we contribute to that area in order to help promote it. We just built the terminal in Galveston, right, in the States, which again wouldn't typically have been a home port area for larger ships. So we went in, we invested, we built a terminal, and that comes all over the world. So maybe again in the future it will happen.
It all depends on the market also. A lot of research been done by Royal Caribbean in different markets and where you can go in. And the time being is Sydney. And then if Melbourne shows up, like I said, right, you will go there also, and you have enough ships. So if you can fill a ship in Sydney, so why go to Melbourne? We need one more ship down here. So it's all about deployments and getting enough ships out. Nothing wrong with Melbourne. The home is probably excellent in Melbourne also.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to, oh, I'm sorry, one more. Let's get one more, and then we need to get back to the business of B and C.
You're very quiet, actually.
Sorry.
You're toning up.
Mine is not actually a question, but thank you. I used to work on board, and I just think how amazing the crew is and what they went through over the last 2 years. And I've just spoken over the last 2 years, being stuck at sea and what we've gone through. So thank you for all your questions.
I couldn't think of a better statement in the morning on. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, please a big hand for our officers today, our environmental officer, chief engineer, hotel director, and the master of the vessel, Captain Espen, ladies and gentlemen.